Microsoft did tablets sooner, but Apple's iPad got the credit for doing it right. Likewise, the Steam Deck most definitely isn't the first to attempt portable handheld PC gaming, but it'll be remembered as being one of the first that you'll actually want to use. Moving to smaller and more compact devices always comes at the cost of less computing power and more limited heat dissipation, but combining an older cut-down processor design with cutting-edge graphics tech, the Steam Deck just about managed playable performance in almost every game. Which is kind of impressive, considering these games were never intended for a battery-powered, small form-factored PC. And I know the Steam Deck's been a great success as it's birthed a wave of imitators, and some of these actually improve on the Steam Deck in several ways. This is good news for all of us, as it's ushering in an era of even more compact and flexible PC gaming alternatives for us all, and at a surprisingly reasonable price point. Thanks Valve. And with graphics cards costing what they do these days, this new era can't come soon enough. Obviously, Nintendo's been doing portable handheld gaming for decades already, and with great success. And mobile phones have games as well, though none I actually want to play. Yet PCs have lacked their own truly portable platform. And I only really woke up to this when the Steam Deck came along and did it right. Because before the Steam Deck, if you wanted portable PC gaming, then it came with considerable compromise. I'd have suggested you used a laptop, but you can only really game on a laptop if still sat at a desk of some sort. I don't know if you've ever tried gaming on a laptop on a train or bus, but it's an unpleasant experience for all but those rare few games and applications which can be controlled keyboard only. You won't have a fun experience using the corner of your laptop as a makeshift mousepad. Having the controls built into the Steam Deck serves three functions. First, it lets you control far more kinds of games than a laptop can. Second, it being self-contained does away with the trailing wires and bulky peripherals. And third, you no longer need a flat surface to use it since you're already holding the device, so you can use it almost anywhere. Normally with new hardware, I'm looking for something to solve an issue that I have with existing stuff, but the Steam Deck created a product I didn't know I wanted, and it created new possibilities. Having a handheld gaming device has changed the way I play games, when I choose to play them, and I even prefer playing some kinds of games on my Steam Deck than I do on my main, far more powerful desktop PC. Especially when in bed. So before I talk about the competition, let's quickly discuss what the Steam Deck gets right and what could be improved about it. I've already discussed this, but it gets the form factor right. It's got all the controls you need to handle most games already built into it, and enough kinds of controls to brute force virtually any gaming interface out there. Performance-wise, it is good enough. You can never have too much power, but you can certainly have too little, and the Steam Deck specs successfully help it to skim above the minimum specs in most games, and I found its performance to be absolutely fine, given its screen and controller-based gameplay. And the Steam Deck's battery life is also good enough. Unless you're running demanding games at uncapped frame rates, you can squeeze several hours out of any experience, and I can't say how long it lasts in less demanding titles because I've never actually run out, but I guess about 4 to 5 hours of non-stop play, which gets me a decent chunk of the way through most journeys that I make. But you know the Steam Deck's biggest strength? It's that it's made by Valve. And I'm not just saying that because I'm some massive Valve fanboy. I might be, but that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because Valve is in a unique position, unlike other companies that may be making handheld gaming devices. Because Valve isn't selling the Steam Deck to make a quick buck. I don't think they're making much money on it at all. For all I know, they might be making a loss. They're making the Steam Deck to get people to use Steam as a method of buying and playing games. That's where Valve makes their money, and so in order to incentivize this, Valve is making the Steam Deck as affordable and as appealing as possible, and as compatible with as many different games as they can, which is a win for consumers. I like that the Steam Deck is made by Valve, because I know they're in it for the long term, both with the hardware and the software support, and they're not just looking to profit from the initial sale. I don't think it even matters to Valve if people buy the Steam Deck, or if they buy an alternative device instead, so long as they're buying and playing Steam-based games. As long as people are doing that, Valve doesn't lose. And Valve probably even wants to encourage other devices to use their own SteamOS. That's their end goal here, to nurture Steam, their digital distribution platform. So Valve is in a position and with the resources to achieve something that very few companies are able to do, and they're selling the Steam Deck at such a low price that even people such as myself, who don't have a real need for a handheld device, can still find uses for and to justify getting one. So those are the Steam Deck's strengths, but it isn't perfect. The thing that's easiest to criticize about the Steam Deck has to be its performance. Because while it can run most games, it can't run them easily. Many newer games require significant compromises to their setting in order to be playable. But the problem here is more difficult than people give it credit for. The solution isn't as simple as giving it a processor with more cores and to double the graphical processing units. Because the real limiting factor with the Steam Deck is how many watts of power it's allowed to consume, how quickly it can cool itself down, and how long we want its battery to last. It's a balancing act, a compromise. If you let it consume more power, it would run the games faster, but the battery life suffers. But I wouldn't even consider more performance to be the number one improvement I'd want from the Steam Deck right now. Instead, I'd like it if the fans were improved, because right now the Steam Deck's fans do spin up and can be heard. Not that it's a problem if you're using earbuds, and it comes with a 3.5mm port, which is always handy. The device has many nice built-in features and buttons, but its touchscreen is awful. There's no defending it. I get frustrated enough simply typing my name on this thing, so it rules out any sort of on-screen typing experience from being anything but truly dreadful. Unless using some kind of novel input method like this one seen here, but that's only needed because the touchscreen was so terrible in the first place. And when I'm holding this device, while my fingers sit naturally on the trigger buttons, when gripping the device my fingers strain to reach up to the buttons above them, and often leads to me accidentally triggering the buttons on the underside instead. My hands are quite big, but as a point of reference, on a PlayStation controller I find the top shoulder buttons easier to reach than the bottom ones are, so it definitely sits differently in my hands. But I guess the biggest downside I've had with the Steam Deck is its operating system, which is strange because it's also one of its greatest strengths. For gaming, the SteamOS is ideal as it ensures the best controls, best performance and best game support that you can get out of this device. You'd give up a lot of this by switching to Windows instead. And that's why I haven't switched to Windows on my Steam Deck. It would mean giving up the one thing I love about the Steam Deck so much, which is how easy it is to pick up and to play games on. Having been presented with that choice, I've opted to keep the Steam Deck as a simple gaming platform for me, but some kind of dual boot, quick switch between SteamOS and Windows would be awesome. Which gets us onto the competition and the ways in which they lose out to or surpass the Steam Deck. First of all, forget about the handhelds that stream their games. If they lack the internal hardware to run stuff, I fear they will become obsolete the moment the online services go down, either momentarily or for good. I want a system that's self-contained, apart from Steam, which I realise is online. I'd also ignore the ones that are based on mobile phone tiers of hardware, which may be good for emulating older games but fall short of the demands of PC gaming, which in my opinion gives up one of the core strengths of Steam Deck tier hardware. There have been many Steam Deck alternatives to come to market in recent months, but I'd like to talk about the Asus ROG Ally, which I think would be the one I'd consider if I didn't have a Steam Deck already, and it contains things that most people would see as being improvements over the Steam Deck. For a start, its hardware is newer, more powerful, and can consume more power. If it had the same screen as the Steam Deck, then all of this extra power would go into improved performance. But because its screen is a higher resolution and refresh rate, a lot of that extra power is used to drive those things instead, and the battery life will suffer. It's great if it's plugged in though, and that extra power will help greatly to get games looking acceptable on an external monitor of some kind, in a way that the Steam Deck's more limited performance can fall short. And despite being capable of consuming more power than the Steam Deck can, the Ally still manages to cool itself better. I was under the impression that the Steam Deck was limited by how much it could cool itself, and that its fan was loud because it was already pushing up against the limits of what was possible to cool within a handheld device. Yet the ROG Ally's hardware wins all around in this regard. That's great news for the Ally, and an aspect that will make it more pleasant to use than the Steam Deck is. Though the most pleasant surprise about the Ally, to me, is how affordable it is, despite higher spec components. The Steam Deck's 64GB model is significantly less at just over half the price of the Ally, but if you value extra performance and a more premium handheld, then the Ally still feels like it's giving you a lot for your money. I simply wasn't expecting so much for $700, and with an even cheaper model on the way. So well done, Asus. And this, I believe, is the right way to go about creating a handheld that's more than just a poor imitation of the Steam Deck. I feared that they were going to price it well above this as some kind of premium device, and some handhelds have, which I feel is missing the point of what made the Steam Deck so appealing in the first place. It felt like it was costing the price of its components, but with its added convenience of being a standalone gaming device being thrown in for free. And the last noticeable difference with the Ally is that it uses Windows rather than SteamOS by default, which probably makes it better suited to what I thought I wanted from a portable device. Although it using Windows does mean that its experience is slightly less polished for gaming than that of the SteamOS. But this may all change, because Microsoft, now aware and caring about how rubbish their operating system is on handheld devices, has expressed interest in improving, meaning that one day I may not have to make a choice between a good gaming experience and general PC functionality on my Steam Deck. And if this is the case, then it's good news for everyone, apart from possibly Valve, and I fully support anything that makes handheld PCs more accessible and practical to use. So what can I say? PC gaming has successfully moved to a smaller form factor than ever before. The line between desktop and mobile blurs even more. The Steam Deck showed it was possible. The ROG Ally offers a surprisingly competitive and more powerful alternative, and I expect to see further advancements coming thick and fast, now a solid baseline in terms of performance and experience has been established. Several big names are behind it, and who knows, maybe we'll even see Microsoft developing their own hardware for it. Though, just like with tablets, I doubt they'll be remembered for pioneering it.